we're going to be discussing QAC 601, that is quality assurance and quality control. Okay, and it also promises to be an interesting course, and like other courses we have just 40 minutes. So let us start right away so that we can cover much before the day runs out. So once again, you're welcome. All right, so we are going to be discussing the concept of quality assurance, or quality first of all, quality assurance, quality control. Then we'll look at good manufacturing practice. I'm hoping that at the end of the day, after we are able to look at these two topics, then we should be able to wrap it up in the next 40 minutes. Okay. Now, when you hear the word quality, what comes to your mind? When you hear the word quality, what comes to your mind? Quality, it has to do with a state of standard, a kind of standard, a kind of excellence, dynamism in terms of how good, how durable a thing is. All right, now we are not going to be examining quality with respect to products only. We're also going to be studying quality with respect to services. So we'll look at product quality and service quality, and also try to see how they apply in different fields. All right, now if you look at every sector, there is need for quality in those sectors. When you go to buy simple things like maybe clothes, you will be asking that, are they quality clothes? In other words, are they good clothes? When you go to the hospital, you want to get good health care, you want to get good treatment, you want to be sure that the people, the health workers attending to you are qualified. The hospital is qualified, it's also a good healthcare facility. You go to education, you talk about good education, quality education. Okay, you go to food, you say you want to buy foods that are standard, that are good. You go to an eatery, you want to be sure that what you're putting into your system would not harm you. Okay, drugs as well, manufacturing, you want to buy a laptop, you want to buy a phone, and all of that, we are always seeking for quality. And so this course is going to be opening us to the importance of quality and how to effectively handle quality and implement it within any system, in our fields of endeavor. So introduction, we said quality is an important factor when it comes to product or services. And with high market competition, quality has become the market differentiator. What does that mean? It's quality that differentiates how good or poor a product is. If you want to tell a product apart, what you need to check is the quality. So in order to maintain or enhance quality, manufacturers use quality assurance and quality control. So these are the two practices that are used in determining quality. But first of all, let's examine the concept of quality. What is quality? Now, we said quality is a very subjective concept. Why do we say it is subjective? We say quality is subjective because it's like beauty. Sometimes beauty is difficult to define, and that's what we say quality is. So just like you can see, I'm sharing my screen. From our screen, you can see that there are various definitions of quality that has evolved over the years. Okay, now the first one we have here is a degree of excellence from the dictionary. We said Dafoe and Duran said it is fit for purpose, and the one that we are going to be adopting, which is the British standard, said it is the totality of features and characteristics that bear upon a product or service to satisfy a stated or given need. Okay, then we also have definitions from people like Crosby, which says it's conformance to requirement or to standard or requirement. Then we have a definition from Gotch and Davis. And Gotch and Davis said that quality is in a dynamic state. That is very important. Gotch brought the issue of dynamism when it came to quality. And by dynamism, he means that quality will ever be improving. Quality will ever be going and getting better. So quality is in a dynamic state. All right. Now, let's move on. So, well, all these further explanations are the further explanations of the different, explanations I just gave about the definitions of quality. Now, look at this very closely. We're going to look at quality from what we call different points of view. So we have quality from customer point of view, quality from process point of view, quality from product point of view, and quality from cost point of view. So these are all the angles and areas from which you can look at quality. Now, if you say quality from customer point of view, it means how the customer sees quality, and if it meets the need of the customer, you can say that what it is quality. If you said quality from process point of view, in other words, when something is being made or produced from starting point to the end, from raw material to finished stage, if you're able to follow the right process of production of that product, you can say the quality follows the right procedure. Then we have product point of view, okay, quality at an acceptable price, and cost point of view, because we cannot separate quality from cost. Most often than not, the higher the quality, the higher the cost. So we're having quality from the various points of views, from cost point of view, from customer point of view, from product, and from process point of view. Okay, so this is the definition of quality we are adopting, that the totality of features and characteristics, the totality of features and characteristics of a product and its ability to satisfy the stated or implied need is what we define as quality. All right. Now, this is what we call the various dimensions of quality, because we examine quality with respect to products and services. So if we are to examine more closely, you will see that we can look at quality with respect to products. If you can see, where my mouse is pointing, you will see what we call the 8 dimensions of quality with respect to product and quality with respect to services. In other words, what are the attributes and characteristics that we are going to look out for that determines whether a product or service is quality? So in terms of a product, if you look at its ability to perform well, you look at the features of the product, you look at its flexibility, you look at its durability, you look at its serviceability and aesthetics. And all of this shows the characteristics that shows the product dimension of a a product. That's, yes, quality dimension of a product. And on the right hand side, we have the service dimension of a product. Okay, in other words, what are we going to look at in terms of services that can determine how can you hear me? That can determine how quality a service is. So the first is what we call timeliness. Second is consistency. Third is courtesy. Fourth is convenience, completeness, and accuracy. Let me quickly define that. When you say a service is quality, you say you look out for how timely it is. Did they meet up with time? You're planning your wedding, for instance, and they came late, or you're going for a meeting, the conference was supposed to start at a particular time and you went and nobody was there. You will say these people are not timely. Courtesy has to do with the discipline of talking and relating to people by standard. Okay, you do something wrong, you apologize, you say thank you, you say welcome, you say how are you say sit down. All of these gestures are has to do with courtesy. Then we have consistency. Quality has to be consistent. You have to be able to reproduce quality. Then you have convenience, completeness, and what? Accuracy. Okay, so also on the left hand side, performance, features, flexibility, durability, conformance, and all of that. So this tells us about the quality dimensions in terms of products and services. Okay, so let's move on. The key elements in quality are what we call quality in design, quality of conformance, and quality of reliability. Quality of design, quality of conformance, and quality of reliability. These are the key elements in looking at quality. Now, the cost of quality, we're still examining quality, and we said the cost of quality is equal to the cost of poor quality plus the cost of good quality. These two costs must come together for you to be able to measure the quality that you have. So why should we add poor quality and good quality to know the value of quality one has? Now imagine that, let me give an example. Imagine you owe somebody 1,000 naira and you have 10,000 naira. So you owe somebody 1,000 naira and you have 10,000 naira. How much do you have at the end of the day? You're going to be having 9,000 naira. Why? Because you have to refund the 1,000 back to the owner. So if you add up the real value of money you have minus 1,000 plus 10,000 gives you 9,000 naira. That is the real value. So it's the same thing in quality. If you want to know the real quality, you must factor all your weaknesses within your system, and those weaknesses is where your poor quality comes in. So cost of poor quality are what we call failure costs. Example of failure costs: you have to rework when a job is not well done, delays, redesigning, failure analysis, retesting, you receive complaints, repairing good, and what we call redoing services. When something is not done well, you have to carry it out again, and all of that is what we call failure cost. Then good quality, cost of good quality, which is a combination of both preventive and appraisal costs. What are preventive costs? These are costs. Preventive costs are costs of all related activities that are designed to prevent what? Poor quality. Example, when you have quality planning, evaluation, which I'm going to look at later, quality improvement, team and project, and all of that talks about the preventive cost. Then appraisal costs are when you're carrying out like checks and balances to be sure that what you're doing is correct. So appraisal costs occur because of conformance to standard. So checking, testing, and inspections are all forms of what? Appraisal. So whenever you carry out good preventive cost systems and appraisal, you're eventually going to have good quality at the end of the day. So let's quickly look at quality assurance and quality control. Quality assurance and quality control, and tell them apart. Okay. Now let me give us a very comprehensive definition. Quality assurance is defined as all planned and systematic activities implemented within the quality system that can be demonstrated to provide confidence that a product or service is what will fulfill quality requirement. While quality control is just the physical verification, okay, that the product conforms to the plan arrangement. Now let me explain that, because this language might not easily be understood. Now imagine you want to produce a product, and in producing that product, you have the series of steps, okay, from point A to point B. Point A being your raw material stage, and point B being your finished stage, or the product stage. So point A, raw materials; point B, finished stage, or the outcome. Now, in between point A, raw materials, and point B, product or outcome, are a series of events or activities that are going to carry out in that process. Now, whatsoever you're going to put in between raw material and manufacturing, that process from point A to B, whatsoever you're going to put in, to be sure that your product has quality, is what is called quality assurance. Once you have your product, you are going to do certain things to that product. So here is your outcome. You have to carry out checks, verification. If there are any issues, there are not any error, whatever you're carrying out on that outcome, that product, before it goes out to the market, is called quality control. Get it very simply. Between manufacturer and production, and raw materials and product, is what is called quality assurance, what you put in. An outcome of what you do on the product before it goes to the market is called quality control. So, but in between manufacturing and product, there are still series of steps. So at certain times, you will still have to carry out quality control at different stages, and so you will see that it's a coin that has two sides, and therefore quality assurance and quality control is like a coin that has two sides. Both are called quality inspection. One cannot do without the other. Okay, so if you go back and read up that, we've differentiated them. This is just a chart that is giving us the major differences between quality assurance and quality control. Okay, now Let's quickly move to the next topic, which is going to help us build upon what we have started this afternoon. So we just looked at introduction to quality. We have said quality is the totality of features and characteristics that bear upon a product to satisfy stated or implied needs. We define that as quality. Okay, and from there we proceeded to talk about different definitions apart from the ones I just gave. Then we also talked about quality from customer point of view, process point of view, product and cost. Okay, then we look at the dimensions of quality in terms of product and dimensions of quality in terms of services. Then we looked at the cost of quality, and we said cost of quality is equal to cost of poor quality plus cost of good quality. Okay, and we looked at examples of poor quality, what poor quality brings about. We say it brings about reworking, delay, redesigning. It can even cause death sometimes when you produce a bad product that people take, people consume, like drugs, and it causes a lot of problem. Okay, then we looked at cost of good quality, then we define quality assurance and quality control. Okay, now I want to quickly make a very important point, and I believe we are all following the class very keenly as it is interesting. I believe we are having a good time together. Okay, so quality can never be judged in isolation. You can never judge quality in isolation. What do we mean by you can never judge quality in isolation? The reason why we have bodies like NAFDAC and why we have bodies like SON. NAFDAC is National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, a Nigerian-based body that regulates food and drugs. Then we have SON, Standard Organization of Nigeria, that regulates all products generally. Now, when you buy a product, there are certain times that you want to be sure of its authenticity. And to be sure of its authenticity or how good that product is, you will likely say, okay, let me check or look out for the NAFDAC number. Now, in checking for the NAFDAC number, why are you doing that? Because you know that a body has been set up to make sure that product and services are well done. So they verify, they check according to their standards. So if you're producing, let me say, packaged water, what's commonly called pure water in Nigeria, if you're producing water or food, and you see that NAFDAC number, what it is saying is that they have gone through all the standard and requirement that NAFDAC and that NAFDAC has set, and they have met those standard requirements, and therefore be comfortable to eat our food or drink our food. That's what NAFDAC, that's what it means. And so also does SON. It's a mark of quality. So why am I explaining this? Anything you are into, there are always standards and regulating bodies, and you should check to see if they are in conformance. So if you're not conforming to the standard that is set, then that company can be locked down. That is why we said quality is judged with respect to standard. If in your school you said A is 70, everyone that gets above 70, whether it's called 70, 80 or 90, all of them are what? A. Why? Because a standard has been set. So standard quality is not judged in isolation. Please note that is very important. Quality is always judged with respect to what? Standards that have been set. And of course, as I said, that is why we have regulating bodies. Okay, so let's look at good manufacturing practice. Good manufacturing practice. And let me also, it's good to recall that we could have fake and we could have substandard. When you say something is fake, you're saying it is not real, it is counterfeit, it is not genuine, entirely wrong. But when you say something is substandard, you are saying it is not fake, but it does not meet up with the requirement. So if Standard Organization of Nigeria carries out an inspection and comes to your facility and say, okay, we are not locking you down, but however, you do not meet up to the requirement. And so we're going to place sealed on your facility. As when you are now able to meet up with your requirement, we can reopen you. Okay, but if you're producing fake drugs, then you're going to be arrested and charged to court because you're producing fake. So fake is not it at all. All right, let's move on to good manufacturing practice, which is a part of ensuring quality assurance and quality control, which is popularly called GMP. Good manufacturing practice called GMP. Now, good manufacturing practice is that part of quality, beg your pardon, is that part of quality assurance which ensures that products are consistently produced and controlled to the quality standard appropriate for their intended use. Okay, so GMP covers all these areas in production. Okay, GMP covers these 6 areas. So GMP talks about your starting materials. Good manufacturing practice must have good starting materials, your manufacturing process, your premises, that is your environment, must be very, very good. The equipment you are using to work has to be very, very good as well. Training of staff and all of that, personal hygiene. All these 6 factors are important ingredients in having good manufacturing practice. So let's start with the first one, starting materials. So starting materials must be right, they must be correct, and that's why some companies practice what is called vertical integration. Okay, I'll leave that to you as an assignment to go and find out what is called vertical integration. It's a means to make sure that you're having absolute control over your raw materials and supplies. Okay, so starting materials, then manufacturing process. Let us see the process of how it's done, and your premises. Literally, there are certain foods that we buy and eat in our restaurants, in our eateries around that. Sometimes if you're to go to the backstage to see how some of these things are prepared, the hygiene around it, you just might not even want to eat that. And it all boils down to hygiene. Some of us have developed a habit where we have neglected the primary basic hygiene that we're taught in primary and GS classes. And these things still hold true today. Look at, for instance, the pandemic that we have faced globally. I remember we were taught in primary schools, wash your hands, clean your legs, you know, cover yourself, bathe regularly, brush your teeth, make sure your clothes are washed. All those basic hygiene still hold very much true even in dealing with the highest forms of sicknesses and diseases today. Okay, so hygiene is very important. All right, then equipment that are used, you know, has to be well. Then staff has to be properly trained. If people do not know better, they cannot do better. Then of course, personal hygiene of your staff and the rest of that. So that comes under good manufacturing practice. Note the following: good manufacturing practices are guidelines that provide guidance for manufacturing, testing, quality assurance in order to ensure that product is safe for human consumption. But GMP are not what we call prescriptive instructions. They do not prescribe or tell us how to manufacture, how to produce. No. They are not prescriptive in nature. Okay, they are guidelines. They are not prescriptive in nature. They are actually guidelines on how to produce. Okay, quality is built into the product, and GMP is the most essential part of ensuring this product quality. Is GMP necessary if there's a quality control laboratory? Is GMP necessary if there is a quality control laboratory? Yes. Good quality must be built in during the manufacturing process. It cannot be tested into the product afterwards. Good manufacturing practice prevents errors that cannot be eliminated through quality control of finished product. And without good manufacturing practice, it is impossible to be sure that every unit has the same quality. Okay, so let's quickly look at what many other practices we have. Not just good, not only in manufacturing that it applies. You can see good laboratory practice, you can see good clinical practice, you can see good regulatory practice, you can see good distribution practice, and even good transportation practice. All these are practices that are that are obtainable rather in the field of good of this practice. And you can see that the practice is a C and not an S. The practices, that C shows that it's a verb and not a noun. Okay, we are running out of time. We have just about 15 minutes more. Now let's quickly look at HACCP. HACCP HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. HACCP, Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. Now, this HACCP is a part of good manufacturing practice because it helps us to cater for three major things. Of course, good manufacturing practice has a lot more. You know, talked about all the various ingredients that must come together and must come in play. But we're also saying that another aspect of it is also HACCP, which is Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. Okay, what is HACCP? How is it used? Where does it apply? Okay, I want to believe we are all together and everyone is following. Okay. Now, HACCP is a systematic preventive approach to food safety from biological, chemical, and physical hazards. Okay, HACCP is a systematic preventive approach in food safety. You know, we use HACCP in food safety, and we use it in food safety to manage or prevent biological, chemical, and physical hazard. We use it to prevent biological, chemical, and physical hazards. Okay, now how does it work? Don't forget physical hazards, biological hazard, and chemical hazard is mostly used in the food process and in the production process, and can to use to reduce or eliminate risk and make food products very fit for consumption. Okay, let me take this way. Okay, so let us move on and see how HACCP works. Now, principles in carrying out HACCP. HACCP has 7 major principles. HACCP has 7 major steps in carrying it out in order to manage food, chemical, and biological hazards. So the first principle is what is called hazard analysis. Hazard analysis. Hazard analysis. And we said at this stage, a plan is laid out to identify all possible food safety hazards that could cause a product to be unsafe for consumption, and the measures that can be taken to control those hazards. Now, we're going to take example of what we call the cooking step or the cooking stage. And we said the cooking step or the cooking step or stage is going to be used as a template to explain HACCP. Now, example, at the cooking step of the production process, one of the identified hazard is the survival of pathogens. And let me also say this as we continue, that some of these principles, we practice them on a domestic level. And I'd like you to use an example that is very funny, that when you want to eat, commonly in Nigeria, when people want to eat beans, they pick it. Okay, we pick the beans to remove it of stones, bad debris, of any other harmful physical hazard. That is actually a HACCP system. It's just that in a more, we can do that at an industrial level or at an industrialized scale. Okay, but we are looking at it even at domestic level. You can use your HACCP. Okay, so back to what we are saying, that the first principle is hazard analysis. Determine what is the hazard. Is it a physical hazard? Is it a chemical hazard? Is it a biological hazard? If you want to cook certain kind of food, we decant. We eat we parboil some kinds of food and decant. Why do we decant, or why do we pour out the initial water before we boil again? We're trying to remove any chemicals that the food was processed. We know that food must have been processed or stored under. Okay, so that is for hazard analysis. Then we have the first stage. The second one is identifying what is called a critical control point. The topic is hazard analysis at critical control point. So the thing is, what is a critical control point? Now, we said a critical control point is a point in the production process where an action can still be taken to what? Prevent or manage that hazard. And beyond the critical control point, nothing can be done about that hazard again. Now, a critical control point is a point at which something can be done about an identified hazard. Beyond the critical control point, nothing can be done about the hazard again. So the first thing is to identify critical control. As we said, hazard analysis, then identify that critical control point. So in the cooking stage now, what is the critical control point? The cooking step is considered a critical control point because measures can still be taken to deal with biological hazard. Okay, so when you have identified a critical control point, you now have to establish a critical control limit. That limit is there because we are going to largely use heat in controlling biological hazards in the food. But you see, if you are not careful of how you manage the heat that you subject that food process to, it can declare it, it can make it not fit for consumption. Okay, so you have to set a limit. Now, the fact that you want to kill pathogens does not mean you keep cooking your food for the next 8 hours. No, your food is going to become unfit for eating, can even burn. So you establish a critical control limit, and in sometimes in industrial scale, we use thermometers to check for temperatures. Under certain temperatures, microbial activity is either low or non-existent, and so at that point, all the microorganisms will have died, and so that food, if there was at all, and now make it food fit for consumption. So establish a critical control limit, of course. Then, and while you're doing that, you'll be monitoring the food. Okay, so establish monitoring procedures for critical control points. Highly detailed monitoring activities are essential to make sure that the process continues to operate safely. Monitoring procedures at the cooking critical control point could include taking the internal temperature of the product with a specialized thermometer. Okay, so establish monitoring procedure, then establish what we call corrective action. Establish corrective actions, okay, where you need to make certain changes. Then you verify. Verification means, is it okay? You carry out tests as all the whatever you wanted to deal with, the microorganisms, the chemicals, have they been taken out of the food? You check, you carry out laboratory tests to see it's okay. Then the last principle is record keeping. The last principle is record keeping. So let me go over them all over again from the beginning of good manufacturing practice. So we said good manufacturing practice is that part of quality assurance that ensures that our products are consistently produced and controlled with the quality standard for their use. It entails 6 major areas, which you said the starting materials must be checked out, the manufacturing process, the premises, the environment which that cooking process is, or the production process, the equipment that are being used, proper training and personal hygiene. Okay, then we went on to look at other forms of practices. We looked at other forms of practices as well. We said we have good laboratory practice, good clinical, regulatory, distribution, and also transportation practice, from which we now proceeded to HACCP. HACCP, which is hazard analysis and critical control point. And we said HACCP is a systematic food preventive approach, to food safety. Okay, and what are we trying to protect that food from? Biological hazards, chemical hazard, and physical hazard. So we now said there are 7 steps in carrying out HACCP. Okay, and the first stage is what is called hazard analysis. Identify what the hazard is. Is it a physical, chemical, or biological hazard? Okay, biological hazard could be pathogens and all of those microorganisms. Chemical hazard could be pesticide or whatever those things, chemicals that were used in preserving the food. Okay, then of course physical hazard could be stones or any debris, hair, and all those contaminants in the food process. So that is what we call identify your hazard. And the next thing is what? Identify your critical control point. And we said the critical control point is that point at which something can be done about the hazard. Beyond the critical control point, nothing can be done about that hazard again. So identify your critical control point, and the example we saw is the cooking stage can be used as a critical control point, where you can still deal with survival of any form of microorganisms, because heat kills them or render them inactive. So establish monitoring, okay, while monitoring, so that you do not declare that yes, as the example, we are looking at food not fit or well for use. Then establish correct monitoring procedures, corrective actions. Then you verify by carrying out tests if that food is okay and fit for eating and consumption, then you always record. So these are the steps in carrying out good manufacturing practice, just as we have seen. So I've been able to cover two things, and I've rushed and I've gone through it so that we can, be able to and do the remaining part of the responsibility. So I want to thank you for being part of this class. At the end of the whole class, I'm not going to give an assignment today. All through, I believe we should be able to have, like 4 contact sessions. After the second class or the third class, I'm going to give one assignment, and that assignment is going to cover for all, for all the classes all together. So you do just one assignment, which I'm going to compile in one and send to us and the appropriate place that you are going to submit the assignment to. So thank you everyone for being part of this class, and for the rest of your class, I wish you all the best. And of course, please stay safe, from COVID-19. And our prayers that God will protect us and roll this pandemic away. Thank you everyone, and do have a wonderful evening. Thank you.